What is up, Terps fans? Welcome into another Fear the Podcast. I'm Modderno. Appreciate you guys joining us. Thanks to everybody who tuned in last week's coverage. The prep for the Georgetown game was well received, it seemed like, and our post-game show got some pretty good numbers too. Apologies for some audio issues with that one. First time doing it live from the arena after the game where one of us was there and one of us wasn't, so there was some syncing stuff to do with the video that will get cleaned up for next time, but we appreciate you guys checking in. Overall, after thinking about that game a little bit more, I'm slightly more encouraged. I really do think that's a good way to just sort of see where your team is at if you're Buzz Williams and figure out where you got to improve and what you got to lock in on. And, we'll see if they actually do those things. But I think that's the glass half full way to look at it. Is it's nice to have an early season test. Maryland has 2 games coming up this week. One of them will be more of a test than the other. The other one is kind of a get-right game, or at least should be. So we'll talk about both of those. First game of the week is Tuesday night at 7 p.m. in Xfinity Center against Alcorn State. The game of the week, the one that we should really be ramping up for here, is Marquette on Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time at Marquette. So homecoming for Buzz Williams, emotional component to that one, I'm sure, for him. Let's just talk about Alcorn State right out of the gate here. This shouldn't be a challenge for a Maryland team if you do have tournament aspirations. This can't be a group that you struggle with. If you Google Alcorn State, the first result that comes up is Alcorn State a Division I program? So that's not a great indictment of where they've been, over the last handful of years. They're 0-3 to start the year. This year, they lost 108-76 to Florida State, who is probably one of the worst teams in the ACC this year. They lost to South Alabama 76-70, and they lost to Minnesota 95-50. So Minnesota projected to be one of the worst teams in the Big Ten here as well. So if you're Maryland, you should throttle this team. That's just what the expectation should be. And anything less than that would be a little disappointing unless they really try to get some developmental minutes for some of the other young guys. We talked about this with Eric Hayes on the Georgetown postgame, but they need to fill out the front court rotation. Alex Alston has to be able to play. Colin Metcalf has to be able to play. So maybe that's an opportunity to get them some more minutes. There shouldn't be anyone on this Alcorn State roster that can really deal with either of the two of them, let alone deal with Pharrell Payne. It's interesting. This Alcorn State team, despite being 0-3, is actually shooting 40% from 3 as a team. They don't take a crazy amount of them, but 40% is still pretty good. And that's something that we talked about this on our X's and O's deep dive with Bryce Hendricks, that this Maryland team is willing to give up 3-point shots. They just don't want them to be wide open rhythm ones. So we'll see what that ultimately looks like for the Terps, if that presents any kind of challenge or allows this Alcorn State team to hang with them a little longer than maybe Maryland would like. I'm projecting something along the lines of the Coppin State game, but maybe even to a greater extreme, as I think this Maryland team has started to figure a few more things out. They'll have Miles Rice for this one. I think that's a big difference maker. The freshman guards just aren't ready to carry the load by themselves. Guillermo Del Pino himself is just somebody that, I still think that starting him cost them pretty big in that Georgetown game. Not to put it all on him. I just think from a preparedness standpoint, they just weren't ready to play that Georgetown backcourt. Him getting ripped at the three-point line, on the first possession of the game, just digging that 11-0 hole. It was almost too much to overcome for a team that ultimately loses by 10 points. So if you want to use this as a game to get GDP some minutes and some reps because you need them longer later in the season, that's fine to do. But Miles Rice should be able to kind of dominate this backcourt realistically. I thought he looked pretty good overall. A couple bad shots here or there maybe, or just kind of forcing some stuff to get to the line, but they needed somebody to do that. Same with Dickie Coit. Just looking at this roster for Alcorn State, they have 6'4" guard Shane Lancaster shooting 60% from 3 right now on 15 attempts, so 5 attempts per game essentially, and he's made 60% of them. Can't imagine he keeps that up for the course of the season, or let alone even through this game, with pretty good perimeter defenders from Maryland being able to get after him. But it's something to be aware of. That's pretty good size for a mid-major guard like that. Another guard worth noting, Davion Williams, 6-foot guard, kind of a quick guard that I think is a guy that could give some of these Maryland guards a little bit of a harder time. He's averaging 9 points and about 4 rebounds so far. Not shooting crazy well from 3, but respectable. The 2 bigs that play the most for them are Tyson McDaniels, 6'8", 190-pound forward, more of an athletic, switchable kind of guy for them. Not really a bang in the post kind of guy. Averaging 10 points, about 4 rebounds. here as well. And then Nick Woodard, a 6'7" forward, averaging 10 points, 5 rebounds. So, both of them are going to play considerable minutes. They're not going to be on the level of Pharrell Payne for obvious reasons there. So I think that alone, that advantage gives Maryland a pretty big leg up going into this one. And I would like to see somebody like Elijah Saunders continue to keep, adding to his responsibilities for this Maryland team. Like, he can't just be only a stretch big or only a uncontested defensive rebounder. I want him to mix it up a little bit more. I want him to bang with some guys and see if he can give them a little bit more post scoring beyond just Pharrell Payne. I think they need this longer term. So I'd like to see that from some of these guys. And we'll just see if somebody like Darius Adams can bounce back after, it wasn't his best game. He looked a little overwhelmed by the athleticism of the Georgetown guards, and that's understandable. It's his first real test in college basketball, so he's not just going to get to the free throw line at will against bigger, stronger guards like that. So hopefully he can kind of just get back to doing what he's doing and continue to build his confidence. And then Maryland, again, hopefully he just keeps getting more healthy. I don't know, maybe at some point we get Solomon Washington back here. My gut is he probably doesn't play until Vegas is, if he even plays then. But hopefully you could get him back and get him a little more mixed into the starting lineup, before that big stretch of games. All right, so the big one is Saturday, Marquette. Marquette right now 2-1. If there was ever a year to play a Shaka Smart team, it's probably this year. They've made a lot of noise for being a team that just sort of totally shuns using the transfer portal. They're focusing solely on internal development. And so far, they've been able to replace Tyler Kolek with Cam Jones and just kind of have the next guard up mentality. Chase Ross appears to be the next guard up for them. He's really good, right? Like, he's the straw that stirs the drink for Marquette. He's a 6'4" guard, averaging 19 points, 5 rebounds, and a little under 4 assists per game. So he's going to be really solid. Marquette, overall, not kind of lighting the world on fire here so far. They beat a U-Albany team that's just okay this year, 80-53. They beat Southern 100-82. Southern sounds like the name of one of those schools, like fictional schools from a basketball movie, because they don't have the rights to talk about real teams. Like, I just wasn't super aware of Southern, so more power to them for putting up 82 points on a Big East team. That's not great for where Marquette is at defensively. And then today, I'm recording this on Sunday, Indiana hangs 100 points on Marquette, beats them 100-77. This is like an Indiana team that Maryland is projected to be, somewhere in the same range of in the Big Ten, and they just routed Marquette. So hopefully, if you're Maryland, you can kind of follow suit here. I don't know, but they shot under 40% from the field against Indiana, 25% from three. That's not going to get it done against Maryland either. Like, unless you're an elite defensive team, which if you've given up that many points in these games, you're probably not. You have to be able to shoot it to beat this Maryland squad, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to do that so far. The next leading scorer on the team after Chase Ross is Zadie Lowry, 6'4" guard, averaging 11 points per game. Royce Parham, a sophomore forward, 6'8", gonna be able to bang inside a little under 9 points per game, 5 rebounds per game. And then Ben Gold, a stretch power forward that I've predicted will break out every year that he's been in college basketball, and it never really happens. So far this year, he's averaging 8.3 points and 8.3 rebounds, which is kind of crazy symmetry for somebody, but 36% from three. Again, kind of a stretch big. He's the tallest guy on the team, and he's not really going to match Pharrell Payne physically. Excuse me. And then the guy who probably will guard Pharrell Payne is a redshirt freshman forward in Caden Hamilton. He's just not there. Like, he's a solid defensive player, but again, I think Pharrell Payne is going to be Maryland's like big advantage in a lot of these games. And if you can just kind of have Miles Rice be a wash for Chase Ross, like, I think, that's a pretty good recipe to go out and beat this Marquette team. Again, just looking at that 100-point loss to Indiana, like, that's not what you want to see if you're Shaka Smart. So maybe that's the same thing for them, where they're looking to get right as well. Just also worth shouting out, they do have a good DMV guard on their team, freshman Adrian Stevens from Bullis Academy. This is a guy I really wanted Kevin Willard and team to recruit a little bit harder, and honestly, they just kind of like let up and ends up going to Marquette, and I think he'll be really good there for a couple years from now. Probably won't play a ton in this game, but physical guard who can shoot it, do a little bit of everything. He fits in that mold of like what they've done with Cam Jones and Chase Ross and all that kind of stuff. So I think he's going to be a really good player for them a couple years down the road, like I said. But just nice to see more DMV players on the court in a Maryland game. even if they're not on the Maryland team. So that's still a little weird to me that there's not really much local representation, but we've talked about that a lot. I did see some conjecture back and forth about, Maryland lost because the Georgetown game meant more to Georgetown than it does Maryland. Like maybe strictly from the sense that there were a couple players on Georgetown, specifically Malik Mack with the Maryland tattoo on him famously, and Deshaun Harris-Smith leaving the Terps to go to Georgetown. Maybe they had a little extra edge to them, and the Maryland players, since none of them have any ties to this region, probably didn't get the local rivalry stuff. That's maybe an argument I'd buy a little bit, but everybody talked to Buzz Williams from day one about the importance of that matchup. He talked about the energy and the emotion behind it before the game even, so they knew what was up. They wanted to win that game. It's just as important for this Maryland program as it was for Georgetown to have won that game. They didn't, and ultimately you just move on to the next one and bounce back. I think if you're trying to get some interest around the program, going out and laying 79 points on Alcorn State and holding them to 45 or whatever would be like a really good start here, or whatever the case is. A 35-point win would be nice, but it's just going to be another like, okay, they should beat that team by that much, and that should help their net rating and all those kinds of things to punish a team like that. The one that gets people's attention is Marquette. Like, they're a known brand in college basketball, and you got to start winning some of these games to cut through the noise a little bit to get fans. Obviously, the football team is not doing what people would like for it to do. So if you're Buzz Williams, like, this is an opportunity to shift some positive focus back to basketball here. And even if it's a down Marquette team, that's okay. You just beat who's in front of you, and going out and solidly beating this team the way Indiana just solidly beat them, I think would make people feel a little bit better about where this team is at. So we'll have some post games coming for you this week here. It might be me solo after the Alcorn State game. We'll see, but I'll get somebody cool on for the Marquette game, and I will not be on the road for that one. So I'll be settled in here, and the audio should be a lot better for both parties involved. So again, sorry about that one, but thanks for sticking with us. All right, you know the drill. Rate, review, subscribe. Hit that like button for us on YouTube. We always appreciate it. Until next time, fear the podcast.